who do you think is the future of the Republican Party after Trump? What happens to Trumpism after Trump?
Like you just said, Bayesian, let's take various theories, right? So let's say it's 04, it's Bush Cheney. In 2004, the day after the election, I would have told you this. We live in a Bible Belt, Jesus land America. This America wants to protect America, a war on terror against Iraq, and the axis of evil, and American people just voted for George W. Bush. And so I would have predicted that it would have been somebody in that vein. And they tried that. His name was John McCain. He got blown the fuck out by Barack Obama. So I cannot sit here and confidently say.
What year would you be able to predict Obama? It's just his first time he gave the speech.
The 2004 speech at the DNC. That was his, we don't live in a black America, white America, the John Kerry DNC speech. You honestly could not have predicted it until 07, whenever he actually announced his campaign and activated a lot of anti-war energy. I mean, maybe 06, actually, I could have said in 06, if I was, kind of the contrarian man now, I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of anti-war energy. I think the next president will be somebody who's able to vote, the explosion of Keith Olbermann and MSNBC, that it makes logical sense in hindsight. But at the same time, you're going up against the Clinton machine, who's never lost an election. So I would have been afraid. I cannot confidently say. So I will say, if things go in different directions, if Trump is a net positive president, then I think it will be J.D. Vance, his vice president, who believes in a lot of the things that I've talked about here today about foreign policy restraint, about the working class, about changing Republican attitudes to the economy. And he would be able to build upon that legacy in the way that George H.W. Bush was able to get elected off the back of Reagan. But H.W. Bush was fundamentally his own man. He's a very misunderstood figure, very different than Ronald Reagan. Didn't end up working out for him, but he did get himself elected once. So that's one path. That's if you have a net positive Trump presidency. The other path is the 04 path that I just laid out. If George W. Bush, if Trump does what Bush does, misinterprets his mandate, screws things up, creates chaos, and it makes it just generally annoying to live in American society, then you will see somebody in the Republican Party. I mean, still, it could even be J.D. Vance, because he could say J.D. is my natural and my chosen successor, but then he would lose an election, and then he would no longer be the so-called leader of the Republican Party. So I could see it swing in the other direction. I could see, Republicans or others, let's say if it's a total disaster and we get down to like 20% approval ratings and the economy is bad and stuff like that, Glenn Youngkin or somebody like that who's very diametrically opposed to Donald Trump, or at least aesthetically, is somebody like that who could rise from the ashes. And I'm just saying, like, in terms of his aesthetic, not him per se. So there's a variety of different directions. It's a big question about the Republican base. I mean, a shit ton of people voted Republican now for the first time ever. So are they going to vote in party primaries? I don't know. The traditional party primary voter is like a white boomer who's like 58, 59. Is the Latino guy in California who turned out to vote for Trump with a MAGA hat and rolling around, suburban Los Angeles with that, is he going to vote in the Republican Party? That could change. So the type of candidate themselves could come. So it's way too early to say. We have so many variety paths that we could go down.
Yeah, I think Trump is a singular figure in terms of, like, if you support Trump, there's a vibe. I know Kamala has a vibe, but there's definitely a vibe to Trump and MAGA. And I think even with JD, that's no longer going to be there. So if JD runs and wins, that would be on principles, and he's a very different human being.
He is so different than Trump, right? You can see his empathy, right? Remember in the VP debate when he was like, Christ have mercy, when Tim Walz was talking about his son. I mean, that's not something Donald Trump would say, okay? It's just not. Like, in terms of, I mean, and this, by the way, this is my own bubble test. I have no idea how somebody listens to Trump and JD Vance is like, Trump is the guy who should be the president over him. I honestly, I don't get it. That's my own cards on the table. I am in too much of a bubble where my bias is to, being well-spoken and being empathetic, or at least being able to play empathetic, and being extremely well-read about the world and thoughtful, and somebody who's, somebody like him who's engaged in the political process, but also has been able to retain his values and be extremely well-articulate his worldview. That's my bias. That's who I would want to be the president. But, it's a big country. People think differently.
By the way, I share your bias.
Yeah.
And I sometimes try to take myself out of that bubble. Like, maybe it's not important to have read a book or multiples of books on history.
I'm not saying everybody should be like me, but that's my point. I'm checking myself by being like, because of who I am, that's how I see the world. And that's how I would choose a leader. But that is not how people vote, period. And nothing has taught me that more than this election.
I wish they did. I mean, I don't know if that's a lesson to take away. I think.
Yeah, but who are we to say? People are allowed to do what they want. I'm not going to tell somebody how to vote.
No, what I'm saying is, you take everything Trump is doing, everything, the dance, all of it, and add occasional Saagar-like references to history books. I think that's just a better candidate.
I agree with you. I mean, listen, it's my bias.
I don't know. I don't think that's bias. I think that's not a bubble thinking. I think
it's amazing to me, right? Like, listen to the JD interview with Rogan. JD, he'll drop obscure references to studies, to like papers that have come out, essays, books. Like, this is a very well-read, high IQ, well thought out individual who also, has given his life to the political process and decided to like deal with all the bullshit that this entire system is going to throw at you whenever you start to engage. That's who I would want to be president, but I'm biased. So what can I say?
I like how you keep saying you're biased.
Yeah.
As if there's some percent of the population doesn't like people to read at all. Okay.